Ladies and gentlemen, life is not a quiet stream. It is a stormy ocean, and if you don't learn to sail with resolve, you'll be tossed like driftwood by every wave of criticism, every gust of doubt, and every splash of circumstance. There is a power, quiet, calm, and almost invisible, that lies within every successful person. It's not luck, it's not talent, it's not even education. It is the ability to act as if nothing bothers them, to walk through fire without flinching, to be insulted and respond with grace, to fail and smile, to be underestimated and yet remain unshaken. When you act as if nothing bothers you, you do not ignore reality, you master your response to it. Understand this. Emotion is the fuel of action, but undisciplined emotion, that's the fuel of destruction. Your job is not to extinguish your emotions, but to direct them, channel them into strength, into poise, into silent, confident power. When people mock you, doubt you, or betray you, remember, the lion does not turn when a dog barks. Your calm in chaos intimidates the insecure and attracts the strong. This attitude is not arrogance. It is spiritual armor. It is the posture of a person who has decided that their mind will never again be ruled by external noise. You can master your fate, but only if you master your reactions. Act as if nothing bothers you, and soon nothing will. That is not a trick, it's a transformation. It's okay to feel fear, doubt, and uncertainty. You don't have to be perfect. Vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, it's a demonstration of courage. But what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck is the ability to stand in the middle of emotional chaos and remain still inside. That stillness, what many overlook or dismiss, is your greatest power. In the modern world, everyone is reacting. Everyone is quick to anger, quick to speak, quick to quit. But the one who pauses, the one who breathes, the one who does not flinch at the first blow of adversity, that person holds an invisible advantage. Inner calm isn't passive. It is not silence born of fear. It is deliberate restraint. It is a declaration to the world that nothing external has the authority to shake what is internal. This doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you are no longer a prisoner of those feelings. You become an observer of your own storm, not a victim of it. And in that quiet observation, you find clarity. You make better decisions. You move with intention, not impulse. That's how leaders emerge, not by shouting the loudest, but by standing firm when the ground shakes. In the face of criticism, remain calm. When plans collapse, remain calm. When people don't understand you, still remain calm. Because in every one of those moments, you are given a choice. React emotionally and give away your power, or respond consciously and keep it. People will test your peace. The world will try to provoke you. Life will poke, push, and prod. But your job is not to fight every battle. Your job is to guard your center like a fortress. This inner stillness, once developed, becomes your armor, not the kind that hides you, but the kind that protects the mission you're on. It allows you to stay focused when others are distracted. It helps you endure when others fold. It teaches you that chaos is temporary, but character is forever. You will start to notice that you are no longer moved by every wave because you've anchored yourself within. That is the power of calm. It allows you to remain unshaken while the world trembles around you. Emotions are not the enemy. They are signals, messengers, responses to the world we move through. Anger, fear, sadness, joy, they all arrive for a reason. The problem is not that we feel too much. The problem is we are never taught how to manage what we feel. Most people are either ruled by their emotions or completely ignore them. But mastery lies in the middle ground, not in suppression, but in control. Suppressing emotions only buries them deeper, where they fester and grow stronger in the dark. You can pretend you're unaffected, but the energy doesn't disappear. It shows up elsewhere, often in ways that sabotage your peace. Suppressed anger becomes bitterness. Suppressed fear becomes anxiety. Suppressed sadness becomes numbness. And none of those states serve you. Control, on the other hand, is conscious awareness. It's the decision to feel what you feel fully, but not to act on it recklessly. You give the emotion a name, a place, and a purpose. You listen to what it's trying to say without letting it take the wheel. Emotional control is not about becoming cold or robotic. It's about being so in tune with yourself that you no longer explode or collapse under pressure. You become the captain of your own mind. When you control your emotions, you gain access to power most people never touch. You become someone who can lead when others panic. You make clear decisions in foggy situations. You don't burn bridges in moments of rage. You don't chase people out of desperation. You don't fold when fear knocks. Instead, you step back, assess, and choose your response with purpose. This control does not come overnight. It's a discipline forged in awareness and refined through repetition. You will get triggered. You will stumble. But every time you pause before reacting, you build a little more strength. You turn emotion from a weapon into a tool. And in time, that ability to hold steady in the fire becomes part of who you are. You don't silence the storm inside you. You learn to command it. That's what separates those who live on impulse from those who live on purpose. True confidence doesn't scream, demand, or constantly seek validation. It moves quietly, with intention and self-assurance. It doesn't need applause or approval because it comes from a place so deeply rooted within that external noise becomes irrelevant. When you're genuinely confident, you don't have to tell people what you are. You show them through your consistency, your presence, your ability to stay composed when others need to be seen or heard, just to feel worthy. On the other hand, insecurity is loud. It craves attention, thrives on recognition, and panics when it's not acknowledged. It's the voice that brags too much, interrupts too often, overcompensates, and constantly compares itself to others. Insecurity dresses itself in arrogance, in forced laughter, in boasting. It doesn't mean to be disruptive, but it's always trying to prove something. Usually to cover a wound left unhealed. While confidence walks into a room and doesn't need to announce itself, insecurity checks to see who's looking. Confidence is rooted in truth. It knows its worth without needing confirmation. It's the result of discipline, resilience, and self-respect. It grows when you keep promises to yourself, when you get up after falling, when you operate from purpose instead of fear. That's why it doesn't need to convince anyone. It knows what it brings, and it doesn't mind if others don't see it right away. It's patient, not performative. When you're confident, you become a calm presence in the middle of chaos. You listen more than you speak. You observe before you act. You lift others instead of competing with them. You aren't threatened by someone else's strength because you're grounded in your own. You don't need to shine brighter than others. You just need to be authentic, and that alone is magnetic. Insecurity, however, keeps you in performance mode. You measure your value by comparison. You speak from fear of not being enough. You overthink, overpromise, and overdo, hoping it will fill the emptiness. But no amount of external recognition will ever satisfy a lack of internal peace. The strongest people don't always look like they're trying. They don't always speak the loudest, but their silence carries weight. Their presence commands respect. Confidence doesn't come from proving, it comes from knowing. You are not your circumstances. You are not the chaos that surrounds you, the mistakes you've made, or the storms you've walked through. The world may try to label you by what's happened to you, by what you have or don't have, by where you started or what you've lost. But the truth is simple. None of those things define who you are unless you allow them to. Circumstances are temporary. They shift, evolve, break down, and rebuild. But your response to those circumstances, that is the mark of your character. Two people can face the same hardship, yet one breaks and the other builds. One retreats, the other rises. The difference is never in the situation, it's in the mindset. What you choose to believe about yourself when the world gives you every reason to quit is what shapes your future. When life doesn't go as planned, when money is tight, when relationships end, when opportunities are missed, none of that is a final sentence. It's a chapter. It's a moment. And moments pass. But if you internalize them, if you wear them like a name tag, you start to shrink yourself to fit a version of life that was only ever meant to be a test, not your identity. You must stop confusing your environment with your essence. Just because you're in a dark place doesn't mean you are dark. Just because you've failed doesn't make you a failure. And just because you're behind doesn't mean you're finished. Growth often starts in the dirt, in the struggle, in the silence, in the stretch. And some of the strongest people you'll ever meet were shaped not by perfect conditions, but by the pressure they refuse to let define them. What defines you is the decision you make right now to rise, to rewrite, to reclaim control over your story. No title, no past, no opinion has the authority to define your worth. That power belongs to you. You can let your surroundings dictate who you are, or you can decide that your identity is rooted in something deeper, your vision, your grit, your ability to rise again and again, no matter what tries to hold you down. There is a certain power that comes from refusing to be shaken. When someone tries to rattle you with criticism, insult, or manipulation, and you meet it with calm, steady poise, you disarm them completely. People expect reaction. They expect you to argue, to defend, to crumble, to lash out. When you don't, they're left powerless. Your control becomes a mirror to their chaos. Your grace reveals their instability. That is the silent victory of poise. It wins battles without a fight. Poise is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is discipline wrapped in dignity. It's the restraint to not give your energy to petty conflict. It's the clarity to understand that not every comment requires a response. Not every jab deserves your attention, and not every confrontation is worth stepping into. You don't need to shout to prove your strength when your silence already speaks volume. The world is full of noise. Emotional outbursts, defensiveness, arguments over opinions. But a poised person is different. They don't flinch when provoked because they've already decided who they are. They don't need to defend their value because it isn't on trial. They don't need to control others' behavior because they've mastered their own. That composure becomes a weapon, a shield, really, that protects your energy, your focus, and your peace. When someone tries to drag you into their drama, you have two options: step into the chaos or remain unmoved. The first will cost you energy. The second will increase your power. And the more you practice that stillness, the more unbothered you become. It's not that you don't feel irritation or anger. You simply choose not to let it run the show. You rise above it, not because you think you're better, but because you've got better things to build. Poise turns provocation into a reflection. People begin to see themselves in your lack of reaction. They hear their own noise in your silence. And that discomfort? That's not your problem to fix. It's their storm to face. You just stay steady, because when you're unshakable, you're untouchable, and nothing throws off someone who's determined to throw you off more than your refusal to bend. Failure is not the enemy. It's not the end. It's not even the problem. The real danger lies in the belief that failure says something final about you, that it defines your worth, your intelligence, or your future. But failure can't harm you if you refuse to let it break you. If you treat it as information, not identity. If you see it as a lesson, not a label. The only time failure becomes a threat is when you decide it means you're not enough. Every person who has ever built something meaningful has failed, often, and in ways that felt humiliating or irreversible at the time. But they didn't stay down. They didn't let one moment rewrite their mission. They learned, they adjusted, they kept going. That's the difference between the ones who rise and the ones who stay buried in defeat. Not the size of the setback, but the strength of the mindset. When you refuse to crumble, you build something stronger than success. You build resilience. And resilience doesn't look glamorous. It looks like trying again after the world tells you to quit. It looks like moving forward with less than you had before. It looks like rebuilding your belief in yourself from the ground up. But with each attempt, each fall, each recovery, you forge the kind of strength that success alone can never teach. Crumbling is a choice. It's not the fall, it's staying there. It's believing that because something didn't work, you no longer have what it takes. But failure is neutral. It's not personal. It's not trying to hurt you. It's a mirror, reflecting what needs to improve, what needs to shift, what you need to learn. And if you can stand in front of that mirror with honesty instead of shame, with courage instead of collapse, you will grow in ways that no easy path can offer you. You are not fragile. You are not broken by setbacks. You are being shaped by them. And every time you refuse to crumble, you send a signal to the world and to yourself that your purpose is stronger than your pain, your commitment deeper than your doubt, and your spirit far more powerful than any loss you face. There are things in life you can't control, what people say, what the world throws at you, when doors close or when plans fall apart. But the one thing that is always in your hands is your reaction, and that reaction shapes everything. It determines your next step, your mood, your momentum, and ultimately, your destiny. Mastering your reaction is not about suppressing emotion or pretending to be unaffected. It's about taking conscious control over how you choose to respond to what happens around you. Most people live in reaction mode. Something upsets them and they lash out. Something scares them and they retreat. Someone disrespects them and they immediately go to war. This way of living is exhausting and dangerous because it means your entire life is being directed by the actions of others. You become a puppet pulled by the strings of circumstance. But the moment you decide to pause, to breathe, to think before reacting, you reclaim your power. You stop being controlled and you start creating. Reaction is instinctual, but response is intentional. Mastery comes from learning the difference. When someone criticizes you, do you automatically feel small, or do you evaluate the truth in their words and decide whether it deserves your attention? When plans fall through, do you panic or pivot? When emotions rise, do you explode? or sit with them long enough to understand what they're really trying to tell you. Every reaction is a seed planted into your future. Some grow into peace, some grow into regret. The more intentional you become, the more you begin to shape your path with precision. You stop making decisions from a place of hurt and start making them from a place of strength. That shift is everything. Mastering your reaction isn't about being passive. It's about becoming deliberate. It's training your mind to slow down before your mouth speaks, before your hands move, before your emotions hijack your better judgment. It's understanding that while you can't stop the waves from crashing, you can learn how to surf. Your fate isn't built in the big moments. It's shaped in the small seconds when you choose how to respond. Own those seconds and you own your life. At first, it may feel like a performance. You bite your tongue when you're angry. You keep walking when someone disrespects you. You choose silence when your instincts scream to react. But what starts as discipline becomes identity. When you act unbothered long enough, when you choose calm over chaos, detachment over drama, and peace over proving a point, something begins to shift inside you. You're no longer just acting unbothered. This is not about pretending nothing matters. It's about choosing what matters enough to disrupt your energy. When you constantly react to everything, you give away your power piece by piece. Every insult, every rumor, every unfair moment steals your peace if you allow it to. But when you train yourself to stay steady, even when your ego wants to rise, you begin to build a new level of strength, quiet, grounded, and unshakable. The mind follows behavior. When you choose to act like someone who can't be moved by every opinion, every petty slight, every inconvenience, your mind learns that those things aren't threats. They become noise. Background hum instead of alarms. You rewire your nervous system to no longer treat discomfort like danger. You start seeing the bigger picture. You begin to care less about being right and more about being in control of your state. Acting unbothered is not about arrogance or indifference. It's about self-mastery. It's about knowing what deserves your attention and what doesn't. It's about protecting your peace like it's sacred, because it is. And once your mind understands that it doesn't need to respond to everything, it stops wasting energy on things that don't. With time, you'll notice the triggers lose their grip. The opinions of others no longer dictate your mood. The delays and detours no longer feel like threats. You respond with clarity instead of confusion. You observe instead of absorb. You feel, but you don't flinch. And that's when you know it's no longer an act. You've become the calm you were trying to imitate. You've stepped into the strength you once had to force. Being unbothered is now who you are. Not a mask you wear, but a mindset you own. Dignity doesn't make noise. It doesn't argue, chase, or beg to be seen. It stands tall in silence, choosing self-respect over reaction, choosing grace over retaliation. In a world where people measure strength by how loud they can get, how quickly they can dominate, dignity moves differently. It holds power without performing it. It knows that walking away can speak louder than shouting, and remaining composed can destroy an opponent without ever lifting a hand. When you choose dignity, you choose to preserve your energy. You don't respond to every insult, every rumor, every attempt to drag you down. You understand that not everything deserves your attention, that not every battle is worth fighting, that sometimes the most powerful move you can make is none at all. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. The wisdom to protect your peace, to stay grounded in your worth, to value yourself too much to lower your standards for a moment of emotional revenge. Your dignity is a silent weapon because it cannot be taken, only surrendered. And when you refuse to give it up, you become untouchable in ways people don't expect. They may provoke you, lie about you, try to paint you in the worst light, but if you hold your center, if you choose silence over chaos, people start to see the difference between noise and truth. Your restraint begins to shine brighter than their aggression. This kind of strength isn't easy. It requires emotional discipline. It requires choosing long-term self-respect over short-term satisfaction. But the more you practice it, the stronger you get. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop justifying your value to those who don't know how to see it. You start moving like someone who knows who they are and refuses to be shaken. Let others talk, let them assume, let them shout. You just keep moving, head high, heart clean, spirit unshaken, because your dignity isn't for sale. It's your quiet crown, and when you wear it well, you don't need to prove anything. Your presence does the talking. Cows will always exist. Storms will always come. People will lose their tempers. Situations will spin out of control. Life will hand you days that feel like hurricanes, but the real power is in becoming the calm inside it all. The steady center that refuses to break, no matter how loud the world gets. Being the calm within the storm doesn't mean you're immune to stress or untouched by hardship. It means you've trained yourself to stay grounded when everything else is shaking. This is a discipline, not a personality trait. It doesn't come naturally for most people. The natural instinct is to match the chaos, to yell when yelled at, to panic when plans collapse, to react when provoked. But when you've made the decision to protect your peace no matter what, you begin to move differently. You don't let outside noise dictate your internal state. You breathe deeper, think clearer, and act slower. You don't rush. You don't chase. You don't fight to control the storm. You anchor yourself in it. Calm is contagious. When others are spiraling and you remain unshaken, you give people something to lean on. You become the example. The presence that doesn't escalate the situation, but instead diffuses it. You lead not by force, but by presence. Not by control, but by centeredness. And that kind of energy changes rooms, changes outcomes, and often changes people. To be calm in chaos doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to respond with clarity, not confusion. You see more because you're not blinded by impulse. You choose stillness, not because everything is fine, but because you understand panic never fixed anything. You realize that true power isn't loud or forceful. It's quiet, deliberate, and grounded. You become the calm not by waiting for peace, but by choosing to be it again and again. When people expect you to break, you breathe. When the storm howls, you hold steady, and soon you realize the storm was never the problem. It was your response that determined everything. Calm isn't just a reaction. It's a way of life, a choice, a power. And once you claim it, chaos can roar all it wants. It won't move you. So when the world pushes, don't push back. Stand firm. When life tests you, don't collapse. Rise quietly. When others lose themselves in noise, stay rooted in silence. This is not about pretending to be untouched. It's about choosing not to be ruled by what touches you. It's about understanding that real strength isn't found in domination or display, but in control, grace, and unwavering composure. Learn to act as if nothing bothers you, not to mask your pain, but to master your power. Because in the end, it's not what happens around you that shapes your life, It's what you do with it. And when you walk through the fire with calm, when you refuse to let anything steal your peace, when you move through storms with your head held high, you don't just survive, you lead, you influence, you become the still force that nothing can. Be that force, be the calm, be the one who needs no applause, no defense, no noise, just presence, just power, just peace.